All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the entrepreneurial journey of Grace Beverley.
Yeah.
She is someone who, on the surface, appears to have it all.
Right.
Two multi-million-pound businesses, an Oxford degree.
By 24.
All by the age of 24. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But we're not just going to be looking at the surface-level success here.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really going to go deeper into the realities of her journey, and we're going to be using her interview on The Diary of a CEO to do so.
That's right.
And we're going to be talking about, the nitty-gritty, the real, the raw, the sometimes messy reality behind what it takes to actually build a business.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's so fascinating about Grace's story is that it really debunks that myth of overnight success.
Right.
We see all these headlines like from bedroom to boardroom and multimillionaire by 25. But what we see with Grace is actually a series of decisions, calculated decisions building upon the last.
Yeah.
It wasn't some sort of eureka moment. It was a very gradual climb
Mm-hmm.
marked by, strategic steps and growing confidence.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I love that it's a story that starts from a place that I think is really relatable for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine your student loan falls through,
Oh.
and instead of panicking, you decide, I'm going to create fitness ebooks,
Wow.
and I'm going to sell them.
Yeah.
Like, such a classic example of, like, turning a challenge into an opportunity.
Yeah,
And I'm sure a lot of our listeners have been in similar situations where something hasn't quite gone to plan.
absolutely.
And it's about how do you move forward from that?
Yeah, and what I think is so interesting is what Grace says about what actually holds people back from starting their own businesses. Because, a lot of people say it's about confidence. You've got to believe in yourself.
Right.
But Grace highlights something that I think is often overlooked, which is circumstance.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the same amount of time, the same resources, the same support networks
Yeah.
to be able to take that kind of leap of faith.
Right. Absolutely. And like we're all on this, entrepreneurial staircase, but some of us are starting a few steps behind,
Mm.
and it's not a level playing field.
Exactly.
And I think that's really important to acknowledge,
Yeah.
It makes you think, what are those unique circumstances that might be holding you back?
Yeah.
And what are the resources that you actually have at your disposal that maybe you're not fully utilizing?
Absolutely. I think it's all about honestly assessing where you stand and acknowledging, like you said, your unique starting point.
Yeah.
You might not be on step 934 like Grace.
Yeah.
Maybe you're on step 3.
Right.
And that's totally fine. Every step forward is progress.
Okay, so let's talk about another thing that Grace is super honest about, which is her early failures.
Yes.
I think we all, we see the shiny end result and we forget about the messy beginning.
Yeah, we buy into that kind of polished product illusion.
Exactly. And even Grace, with her multi-million-pound empire, she's very open about the fact that she had those initial stumbles and she didn't get it right straight away.
And what's so refreshing is that she really embraces those early failures as learning experiences.
Yeah.
She doesn't shy away from them.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really powerful lesson for all of us, those scrappy first attempts. They're essential stepping stones, even for the most successful ventures.
Totally. And it makes you realize that, like, the perfect, Instagram launch or whatever it is, that's only a tiny part of the story.
Exactly.
It's all about embracing those imperfections and learning from each of those missteps.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of hurdles, Grace doesn't shy away from talking about some of the unique challenges that women face in the business world.
Absolutely. And, even while acknowledging her own privilege, Grace opens up about, facing those preconceived notions about being underestimated simply because she's a woman.
Yeah.
It's a reality, sadly, that so many women entrepreneurs have to navigate.
Right.
And they're battling against, these deeply ingrained biases, these stereotypes.
Yeah, and often, these successful women, they get slapped with these labels like superwoman or tyrant,
Exactly.
and it adds another layer of complexity to their journeys.
Yeah, for sure.
And then on top of all of that, there's the ever-present weight of public scrutiny, which I think is something Grace knows all too well.
Absolutely. Having built this massive online following, Grace experiences the full spectrum,
Right.
from the devoted supporters to the really harsh critics. And it's this constant balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah.
Navigating negativity, but staying true to your own values, especially when your work is so public.
Yeah, there's a quote that she says in the interview which really stuck with me. She says, "I'd rather people have that conversation and maybe write off my success based on that than not be able to know in myself why I've been successful and how I've worked.
Wow.
It's powerful, isn't it?
It is.
It speaks to that deep inner confidence and self-awareness. And it makes you wonder,
Hmm.
you know, how would you handle that level of criticism,
Yeah.
especially when it feels so personal?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be able to hold on to that conviction in your own success?
I think that's such a great question for everyone to reflect on.
Totally. And it leads us to another really important aspect of Grace's story,
Mm-hmm.
which is the unexpected sacrifices that often come with success.
Yeah.
It's not all champagne and private jets.
Right.
You know, Grace is very open about the fact that she's made trade-offs along the way.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. She missed out on a typical university experience
Yeah.
because of how dedicated she was to her businesses.
Yeah.
It makes you kind of rethink that whole work hard, play hard motto, you know?
It really does. She even compares running a business to having a baby.
Wow.
Now, before you think that sounds dramatic,
Right.
think about the similarities.
Okay.
The constant demands, the sleepless nights, and the impact it has on every aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, both demand this immense amount of dedication and attention.
It's a thought-provoking comparison for sure,
It is.
because it makes you ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice to achieve your goals?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, there will be trade-offs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about consciously deciding, you know, what are you willing to let go of?
Absolutely.
And sometimes those sacrifices can have a ripple effect,
Yeah.
especially on our mental well-being.
That's right. And this is where Grace's story takes a really candid turn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's incredibly open about her mental health journey,
Yeah.
including her experience of being hospitalized due to burnout.
Yeah.
And what I find so remarkable is her willingness to share this, you know,
Right.
really breaking down the stigma that's often associated with mental health.
Totally. And she's a huge advocate for therapy, especially for entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
who are facing that immense pressure to be on all the time.
Yeah, it's like they're expected to constantly hustle,
Yeah.
which we know is incredibly draining.
Yeah.
And what I find so admirable is that she doesn't shy away from her own struggles,
Right.
even admitting that she doesn't always practice what she preaches when it comes to self-care.
Yeah.
And I think that vulnerability makes her message about mental health so much more relatable and impactful.
I agree. It reminds us that even the most successful entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
they're human.
Mm-hmm.
They face the same challenges as the rest of us.
They do.
And it brings up this whole hustle culture phenomenon, which Grace has some pretty strong opinions about.
Yeah, she does.
It's interesting because she really challenges that glorification of overwork,
Yeah.
and she highlights the dangers of equating constant work with productivity, which is such a trap that I think a lot of us fall into.
It is.
But as Grace learned firsthand, it's not sustainable in the long run.
Not at all.
It makes you stop and think, you know,
Right.
have you fallen into that trap of overwork?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize the warning signs of burnout?
Yeah.
It's so easy to get swept up in that always-on mentality.
Yeah.
But Grace's experience is a really stark reminder of the potential consequences.
Absolutely. And what's crucial is recognizing that true productivity
Yeah.
isn't about endless hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's about working smart and setting boundaries and prioritizing your well-being.
Yeah,
It's a real shift in mindset that I think a lot of us need to make.
totally. And this kind of ties into another interesting concept that Grace brings up,
Mm-hmm.
which is toxic positivity.
Oh, yeah.
This pressure to always look on the bright side,
Right.
even when things are tough.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think Grace navigates in a really nuanced way.
Mm-hmm.
She recognizes the importance of allowing for complex, sometimes contradictory thoughts and feelings.
Absolutely. It's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience
Yeah.
and recognizing that acknowledging the tough parts of entrepreneurship
Right.
doesn't diminish the hard work involved.
Totally. It's about finding that balance, which Grace openly admits is an ongoing process for her.
Yeah, she has this great quote about it
Oh, yeah.
where she says, balance, it's not 50-50. It's not a tipping set of scales. It's, sure, this is what's added up. Oh, yeah, I'm definitely happy.
I love that quote.
Yeah.
It really resonates.
It's about finding a balance that works for you and acknowledging that
Yeah.
it might look different for everyone.
Yeah.
There's no one-size-fits-all formula.
Oh, absolutely. And that actually leads us to a question for you. You know, what's resonated most with you from Grace's story so far?
Yeah.
What aspects of her journey have kind of sparked your curiosity?
Mm-hmm.
And how can you apply those insights to your own life?
Yeah.
Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply someone who's navigating the ups and downs of life.
Yeah, hold on to those thoughts because in the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we're going to be unpacking Grace's insights on building a personal brand,
Cool.
cultivating creativity, and finding that ever-elusive balance
Right.
between ambition and well-being.
It's going to be a fascinating exploration of what it truly means to live a fulfilling and successful life on your own terms.
On your own terms.
On your own terms.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, stick around. It's interesting because, for Grace, that definition of balance, it's not static.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving as she's, navigating these demands of her businesses and her personal life.
Right.
And she's so open about how it's this ongoing process, not a destination.
And I think that's really refreshing to hear from someone who is so successful, right?
Totally.
Because it gives us all permission to embrace that kind of messy process as well.
Absolutely. And it ties back to, Grace's experience with burnout.
Yeah.
Remember that story she told about launching a business right before university finals?
Oh my gosh. Talk about pressure.
Yeah.
Like that just shows you the intensity of her work ethic and determination.
Yeah.
But it also, I think, underscores the dangers of that hustle at all costs mentality.
Exactly. She was burning the candle at both ends, thinking she was doing everything right.
Right.
But ultimately, it was unproductive.
Unsustainable. And it led to that burnout.
Yeah. And it's a powerful lesson for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
Working hard shouldn't mean sacrificing our well-being. It's about finding that sweet spot where productivity and self-care can coexist.
She makes a great analogy. She's like, you wouldn't expect a marathon runner to sprint the entire race.
Totally.
They'd burn out.
Before the finish line.
Yeah, exactly, before the finish line.
Yeah.
So it's about pacing ourselves, recognizing our limits and building in those necessary rest periods.
And talking about rest, Grace is a huge advocate for mental health days.
Oh, yeah.
Like she even has this duvet day policy in her companies.
I love that.
Where employees can take a day off, no questions asked.
Wow.
If they need it.
That's fantastic.
It's amazing. It's so good.
It's normalizing taking care of your mental health.
Yeah.
Which is so important in, today's high-pressure environments.
Absolutely.
We're humans. We're not machines. We need time to recharge and prioritize our well-being.
Absolutely. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
And Grace is also a strong advocate for therapy, particularly for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
She talks about how therapy has really helped her to process the chaos and the pressure that comes with running multiple businesses.
It's so valuable to have that safe space to unpack those thoughts and feelings, especially when you're facing challenges and making tough decisions.
Absolutely. And I think what's really striking about that is her honesty about her own journey with therapy.
Yes.
She admits that she didn't always believe in it.
Yeah.
And it took time to find a therapist who she really connected with. And that vulnerability, I think, makes her message all the more relatable.
It does.
And it emphasizes that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Absolutely.
And it kind of transitions perfectly into another aspect of Grace's story, which is her relationship with social media.
Oh, yeah.
She's incredibly candid about the challenges of navigating that space, especially as a young woman on business.
Yeah, it's a real double-edged sword, isn't it?
Totally. Like, on one hand, it's so powerful for building a brand, connecting with an audience. But on the other, it can be a breeding ground for negativity.
Totally.
And unrealistic expectation.
And comparison.
And comparison, exactly.
Yeah.
And Grace talks about learning to handle both the praise and the criticism.
Yeah.
Which is a constant balancing act.
It is.
And she even admits that stepping back from certain platforms was partly due to that feeling of constantly having to justify herself.
Right.
And that constant pressure to be on could be exhausting.
Yeah.
And ultimately inauthentic.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in presenting this perfect curated version of ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's unsustainable.
Totally. And I think Grace's experience reminds us to be really mindful of our social media consumption and to really curate our feeds to support our well-being.
Yeah, and finding that balance between connection and disconnection, between using it as a tool but not letting it consume us.
Yeah, and she's very intentional about the platforms that she engages with. She talks about loving Instagram, enjoying the visual aspect of it, and the ability to connect with her audience in a curated way.
Yeah.
But she's also aware of the responsibility that she has
Yeah.
as a successful woman
Mm-hmm.
to be present and to show a different side of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, for sure. It's about representation, and showing young women that it is possible to build a successful business
Right.
without sacrificing your values or your sanity.
Absolutely. And she uses her platform brilliantly,
She does.
advocating for sustainability,
Mm-hmm.
mental health,
Yeah.
challenging those traditional notions of success.
Yeah, and she's not afraid to be vocal,
Mm-hmm.
share her experiences, the lessons she's learned.
Yeah, her transparency is really inspiring.
It is, and it's clear that she's still evolving.
Yeah.
Still figuring things out.
Right.
And constantly learning.
Which is exactly what we should all be doing.
Absolutely. It's a journey.
Yeah, embracing that journey of growth and recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, speaking of defining success,
Yeah.
Grace talks about this shift that she had from that more is more mentality
Mm-hmm.
to really focusing on doing a few things really well.
Absolutely. And that's such a valuable lesson, I think, for entrepreneurs who often feel this pressure to constantly expand and chase the next big thing.
Right.
She highlights the importance of patience,
Yeah.
building sustainable businesses
Right.
instead of spreading herself too thin.
Yeah.
And it's, quality over quantity is such a powerful principle.
Totally.
And I think Grace's story really emphasizes that, True success comes from creating something with lasting impact.
And it's interesting to hear her thoughts on kind of the evolution of her businesses.
Mm-hmm.
She's open to potentially selling one in the future,
Wow.
but she remains committed to building brands that align with her values,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really cool. And it just reminds us that entrepreneurship is a journey
Yeah.
and the destination might change along the way.
And being flexible and adapting and open to new possibilities is so essential.
Absolutely. And she's incredibly thoughtful about how she manages her time and energy. She's strict about taking weekends off
Good for her.
and setting boundaries between work and personal life.
It's about creating that sustainable rhythm
Right.
that allows you to be present in both
Yeah.
without burning out.
She even talks about how much she loves living with her friends, even though she could easily afford, a luxurious solo apartment.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about her values and her desire to maintain those personal connections, despite her growing success.
Exactly. She's not letting you know. Her entrepreneurial ambitions define her entire identity.
Right.
She's creating a balanced and fulfilling life.
And constantly redefining that balance, right?
Yes.
Like she even says it's not about that perfect 50-50 split.
Yeah.
It's about finding a rhythm that feels right in each moment, checking in with herself,
Yeah.
assessing her priorities, and making adjustments as needed.
It's about being ambitious, but also fulfilled.
Yeah,
Successful, but also happy.
absolutely.
Balance is a journey. It's this constant process of reassessment, readjustment.
It's about giving ourselves permission to experiment, to make mistakes,
Yeah.
to discover what works best for us, and recognizing that there's no one right way to do things,
Absolutely.
and that we each have the power to create a meaningful and sustainable life.
And I think Grace's story really exemplifies that. It reminds us that success doesn't have to come at the expense of our well-being,
Right.
and that it is possible to achieve our goals without sacrificing our values or our sanity.
Couldn't agree more now.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the final part of our deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch upon Grace's approach to building and leading teams.
Oh, yeah. This is interesting.
Because what's really interesting is that initially she was hesitant to hire experienced people.
Yeah.
She felt this need to prove herself first,
Right.
and she was worried that hiring senior people would expose her lack of experience.
I think that's such a common fear
Yeah,
among young entrepreneurs.
totally. We often think that we need to have all the answers,
Yeah.
and that asking for help is a sign of weakness.
Right. You have to have it all figured out.
Exactly.
But as Grace quickly realized, surrounding yourself with talented experts
Yeah.
is essential for growth.
Yeah. She even jokes that her first 10 hires were all kids
Oh.
because she was so intimidated by managing more experienced individuals.
Oh, that's funny.
It's funny, but it also, I think, highlights a really crucial shift in her leadership as she matured.
Yeah.
She realized that delegation wasn't a threat.
Right.
It was actually a way to empower her team
Yeah.
and amplify her own impact.
It's about recognizing that, her role as CEO is to set the vision and create the conditions for success,
Right.
not to micromanage every detail.
She cites Google's work culture as inspiration,
Oh, cool.
where employees are encouraged to be founders
Oh, wow.
of their own projects.
I love that.
And she's seen firsthand how that approach leads to incredible results.
Yeah.
Her businesses have flourished as she's learned to let go of that control and trust her team to execute her vision.
And that's such a powerful lesson for leaders at all levels.
Totally.
The most successful teams are those where everyone feels empowered to contribute their best work.
Totally. And it starts with the leader fostering a culture of trust, transparency, and open communication, which is something that Grace is a master at.
Yeah.
She's known for her supportive leadership and her ability to inspire her team.
And she's not afraid to be vulnerable. That admit when she doesn't have all the answers and ask for help.
And that vulnerability is what makes her such an effective leader. Creating an environment of psychological safety where people feel comfortable taking risks, sharing ideas. It's a reminder that true leadership isn't about having all the answers.
Right.
It's about creating an environment where everyone feels empowered to learn and grow.
And she continues to evolve as a leader, just as she does as an entrepreneur and as a person She's committed to lifelong learning, challenging her assumptions, and creating a better world through her work.
And it's that growth mindset that makes her such an inspiring figure. And as we kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive, I think it's worth reflecting on Grace's perspective on dealing with challenges and setbacks.
Yeah, she has a really unique approach to failure.
Yeah.
That I find so empowering.
She doesn't see it as negative.
No.
She sees it as an opportunity for growth and learning.
Exactly.
She talks about how every setback has led her to a better place. Whether it was getting rejected from Oxford initially,
right,
or having a dream job fall through during the pandemic.
Well,
she even jokes that she has few regrets because she always finds that silver lining in any situation.
It's like that pick yourself back up attitude that's fueled her success.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that, setbacks are inevitable.
Yeah.
But they don't define us.
Right.
It's how we respond to those challenges that shapes our trajectory.
And Grace's story is such a testament to the power of resilience, adaptability, and a positive mindset.
Totally. Yeah. It's about embracing that messy and imperfect nature of entrepreneurship and recognizing that every experience, good or bad, is an opportunity for growth.
For sure.
And that growth mindset is key to success, however we choose to define it.
Absolutely.
Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to touch upon Grace's relationship with money.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a topic that she discusses very openly and offers some really honest insights into the financial realities of entrepreneurship.
She's very transparent about, being financially secure. But she emphasizes that wealth isn't her driving force.
Right.
At a certain point, money stopped being the primary motivator.
She realized that true fulfillment comes from building something meaningful, creating a positive impact, and working with a team that she loves.
And she's very intentional about how she uses her money, supporting causes that she believes in, investing in her businesses, spending time with loved ones.
It's a great reminder that financial success is just one piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
It's about aligning your financial goals with your values. And your overall vision for life.
And Grace really embodies that,
She does.
Using her wealth to create positive change and live authentically.
It's a powerful message for all of us.
Yeah, money can be a force for good, but it's up to us to define how we want to use it.
Absolutely. And it's about striking that balance between financial security and pursuing our passions, between building wealth and making a positive impact on the world.
And I think Grace's story reminds us that we can achieve all of that with hard work, intentionality, and a commitment to lifelong learning and growth.
Absolutely. As we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore Grace's insights on building a personal brand, cultivating creativity, and finding that balance between ambition and well-being.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned for more fascinating insights from this remarkable entrepreneur. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Grace Beverley's world.
Yeah.
And it's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has.
We've unpacked so much.
Yeah.
Her entrepreneurial hustle, her openness about mental health, her views on balance, and we've still got more to cover.
Yeah, there's so much to learn from her.
Let's talk about her approach to building a personal brand, because she's clearly a master at it.
Totally. And what's interesting is that for Grace, it doesn't seem to be about chasing followers or seeking external validation.
Right.
It's more about authentically sharing her values, her expertise, and that unique perspective she has with the world.
Yeah, and she's very intentional about the content that she creates and the platforms that she uses. Like, remember her decision to step back from YouTube?
Oh, yeah.
It was a bold move.
It was.
But it showed a real commitment to staying true to herself and to, her evolving definition of success.
Absolutely. And I think it highlights that important principle of choosing platforms and mediums that really resonate with your goals and values and being selective about where you show up.
Yeah, she prioritizes quality over quantity and focuses on building those meaningful connections.
Yeah, definitely.
And she's not afraid to be vulnerable, to share her struggles, to admit when she's still figuring things out.
Yeah, and that authenticity is what makes her so relatable and inspiring to so many people.
It's a powerful reminder that building a personal brand isn't about crafting this perfect, polished image. It's about showing up as your true self.
Absolutely.
Sharing your story and connecting with people who genuinely resonate with your message.
And she is such a good storyteller, weaving in those personal anecdotes, the business insights, those thought-provoking observations,
It's clear she's put a lot of thought into her personal brand, and she uses it as a platform to empower others, to advocate for change, and to, create a more positive and inclusive world.
And her writing, especially in her book, is so insightful and thought-provoking.
It is.
She just has this knack for articulating these quite complex ideas in a way that's both relatable and accessible.
Totally.
And it just speaks volumes about her dedication to making a real difference through her work.
Yeah. And it's not just talk either. One of the things that makes Grace so inspiring is her commitment to her values.
Yeah.
Particularly sustainability.
Oh, absolutely.
She's such a fierce advocate for sustainable practices in her own life, but also in her businesses.
Yeah, she really challenges the status quo, doesn't she?
She does.
Pushing for ethical and responsible practices in the fashion and fitness industries.
And it's not just lip service.
No.
Like, her businesses are built on this foundation of sustainability,
Right.
and she's always looking for ways to minimize their environmental impact and create products that are stylish but also sustainable.
And it's such a powerful message for all of us, I think.
It is.
It shows that we can all make a difference, even in small ways.
Oh, dear.
Whether it's, making conscious choices in our own lives or supporting ethical businesses or speaking up for what we believe in.
Yeah.
Every action counts.
Every action counts, and Grace is living proof that you can build a successful business without compromising your values.
She's using her platform to raise awareness, challenge those harmful stereotypes, and inspire real action. And she does it all with grace and humor and a healthy dose of self-awareness.
Yes, and that self-awareness is key, isn't it?
It is.
It allows her to navigate all those complexities of being an entrepreneur, of having a personal brand, of being an advocate for change while staying true to herself.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that success doesn't have to come at the expense of our values or our well-being.
And Grace's story really demonstrates that, it is possible to build a thriving business, to cultivate a strong personal brand, to make a real difference in the world and still be your authentic self.
It's all about finding that unique balance between ambition and well-being, success and fulfillment.
Yeah.
Making a difference and living a life that feels aligned with your passions.
It's a journey we're all on, and Grace's story just provides such a great roadmap.
It does.
For navigating those challenges and embracing the possibilities along the way.
And as you continue on your own path, remember to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Embrace that messy process.
Absolutely.
And never stop learning and growing.
And who knows, maybe someday you'll be sharing your own inspiring story with the world.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Grace Beverley.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
We hope you found her insights as valuable and as thought-provoking as we did.
And before we go,
Yeah.
We'd love to leave you with a final question to ponder. What's one small step that you can take today to move closer to your goals, to live a more balanced life, or to make a positive impact on the world?
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.